Space, the final frontier. Join us for a bold conversation. Our prime directive: to recap our favorite Star Trek shows, both new and old. To engage in debate about all things Trek. Prepare to energize with phasers set to stun.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Phasers Set to Stun, where we continue to show our love for everything Star Trek in this ongoing series from a Film by Podcast, which focuses on every quadrant of the expanding universe of Trek by covering television, animation, movies, directors, and more. Plotting the course, as always, is your core Trek crew. I'm David Burns.
And I'm Scott Hoffman.
And I'm Wayne Whited.
Well, gentlemen, in this episode, we're going to continue our discussion on what we like to call Star Trek, a curated episode list for first-time viewers. Just as we did with Star Trek The Next Generation, we are now going to do it with Deep Space Nine. This spoiler-free list focuses on what we think are the top 10 episodes from each season. And of course, we're going to start with Season 1. Deep Space Nine, the series would run from 1993 to 1999. It would have 176 episodes and run 7 seasons, and would be the first time in Star Trek history that we would have 2 series running at the same time. Although briefly, but it still counts, as Star Trek Next Generation would end in May of 1994. This all really came about when the creators Berman and Piller wanted to explore new characters and new stories, but they wanted to change the formula by going away from a spaceship and utilize a space station, going for that Western space vibe. In creating Deep Space Nine, Biller and Pillmer drew upon elements that were introduced in the Next Generation, namely the conflict between 2 species, and of course that is the Cardassians and the Bajorans. Gentlemen, I think this was a bold move to go to a space station and not a ship. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everything's happening in one place, which gives you a lot of consistency. But, you know, I know that there's some who had a hard time with the kind of lack of exploration. That being said, you're at the very tip of the Gavin Quadrant, parked right outside a wormhole. So, I mean, there's not much more new you can get than that.
Well, you know, one thing that really makes this series different from like Star Trek The Next Generation is the fact that, you know, they are on a space station that's stationary. You know, they're orbiting the same planet in the same part of space, you know, each week, which means that the consequences that evolve from each one of the storylines stays with them from week to week. You know, they can't just warp away to another planet, leaving all their problems behind. They have to continue on. They have to deal with them. You know, this means that we saw a lot more development in the continuing storylines. You know, we got to dive deep more into the Federation and how it works, rather than, you know, just Starfleet and the things that happen on a regular starship. And, you know, we get to spend 7 years learning about a single planet, you know, Bajor, and its politics, its conflicts, religion, you know, far more than any other planet in any of Star Trek. You know, we learned more about Bajor in Star Trek than we ever did about Vulcan or even Earth. And I think that's what made this show unique and successful.
Absolutely. And the Cardassians as well, right? I
Yes.
mean, we learned so much more about the Cardassians, the Ferengi, places where we never thought we'd get the time and the depth to kind of explore it. And I know that, Wayne, you and I talked about the Deep Space Nine documentary here. Gosh, I don't remember how long ago that was. But
It's been a while.
yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've been dying to crack this back open.
Yes, me too.
So what do you guys think about the uniform change?
I liked it. I mean, it's not much different. It seemed
It's
like
not.
a progression, or not really, you know, a step up, but just a step sideways from the other Next Generation uniforms. Like they should be there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was something, a change that needed to be for the space station. You know, I think it worked. But to go back on what you were saying too, Wayne, it gave us an opportunity not to take anything from the Next Generation, but it made the main storylines, it seems to be more in depth the later seasons we get, because you're right, we get to know the people of that planet so much more, how it works, the ins and the outs, that you can't get away from it. And it really becomes ingrained into the show, which really makes you emotionally attached to it. And I think that was a brilliant move.
And it stepped away from the episode of the week, the problem of the week, and kind of went into, especially in their later seasons, more of a serialized nature, which I think a lot of that has to do with another TV series that was on the air at the time, Babylon 5. But we'll get into that on later seasons. But in my opinion, that actually was an improvement. If you look at the first season and the second season compared to the other 5 seasons, it is a major step up in the way Star Trek is told.
By far.
They go from Chap 3 to Chap 12.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, you can really tell it too, because some of the stuff in the first season, and any season, any series when it first starts, has its little struggles. This one seemed to start off on a better foot than the Next Generation did, but it still had some growing pains, right?
It did. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially in the characterization. Some of the characters are rather abrasive and unlikable during the first season.
Oh, yeah.
They fortunately grow out of that.
Now, I will say, and I'm going to remind the listeners who listened to us during the Next Generation Starter Trek, I said that I was not a fan of the Ferengi, and I wasn't then. I felt like they were obnoxious, they were silly, and it was a villain I just did not like, or a species I did not like. I will say, though, and I believe we mentioned it then, it's Armin who plays Quark. Quark is amazing. I love his character so much. And when I started watching this again to get prepped for this podcast, because it's been a long time since I've seen Deep Space Nine, probably when it first aired, to be honest with you, to see him again, I started chuckling because he's so good in that role, especially his relationship with Odo. It's incredible.
They still are obnoxious and silly, but time in a good way.
Yes. Absolutely. But I mean, Quark is such a good character. And I'm so glad that we got him on Deep Space Nine. And I don't think it would have been the same if we didn't have the same actor playing Quark, because he's so good in that role. And I know, just like everybody else in this cast, they're going to grow into those characters, and they're just going to get better and better. And I can't wait to some of the episodes we're going to talk about in later seasons. But it was good to see him again and watch his antics, because it was absolutely hysterical. His how many acquisitions are there out there?
Rules of acquisition?
Yeah, rules of acquisition. How many are there?
There's a ton. I don't know if
there's a ton, and I'm keeping track of them.
It'd be interesting if they actually ever decided to set a cap, or if they made a rule way back then to say there is no cap on rules of acquisition. There should always be new ones coming out.
There's hundreds and hundreds of them. I know that.
And Dave, I completely agree. And I would just say, fresh listeners, because I know there are going to be some. Yes, the Ferengi are greedy and obnoxious, as kind of a blanket statement. Like, it's written to appear that way. Yep. If you've been with us since Next Generation, you remember from the days when they had the electric whips. You probably know what I'm talking about. They're not wearing the fur vests anymore, so that's a plus sign. I would definitely agree with Quark, but I would plus that up and say watch Rom and Nog.
Yes.
Their progression through this. Aaron Heisenberg, Max Grodenchik. They start at a certain place, and they're going to surprise you. So just wait for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought them up too, because this show, more than any of the other Star Trek, has such a fantastic secondary cast. Lots and lots of them, from all the different races, and it really benefited from that. And those two were two of the characters that probably benefited the most. They had the biggest growth throughout the 7 years.
Sure, yeah.
And one thing going for the kid character of Jake, I don't hate him as much as I hated Wesley.
Sirach Lofton does a great job as Jake, and again, there's a character like watch the progression. Definitely worth staying through.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to mention that later. You know why you don't hate him as much as Wesley?
Why?
Because he only appears in 9 of the 20 episodes this season.
True.
They knew not to overdo him like they did with Wesley and shove him down your throat.
He's got a good relationship with his dad, though. I really do. I like the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So they definitely nailed that in season 1. He may be only 9 episodes, but they did nail that.
They did. Yes.
So, and their chemistry together is fantastic. It really is.
Yeah. And you get a lot of richness in that relationship from the jump, from the first episode, from Emissary.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listeners. Well, let's take our first break, and when we come back, we will start talking about our 10 episodes. Welcome back, listeners, to Phaser Set to Stun, where we are continuing our discussion of our favorite 10 episodes of Season 1 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So let's go ahead and get started, gentlemen. Let's start with number 1. Wayne, be my guest.
And number 1, of course, is the pilot, Emissary, written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, and directed by David Carson. Commander Benjamin Sisko reluctantly takes command of the newly transferred Cardassian-built station, Deep Space Nine, orbiting the war-torn planet Bajor. Still grieving over the loss of his wife at Wolf 359, Sisko struggles with his assignment and with his role as Bajor's fragile post-occupation recovery. When the crew discovered a nearby stable wormhole, home to the mysterious non-corporeal beings, the find promises to make Bajor a hub of galactic importance. Sisko must communicate with these beings, who exist outside of linear time, and confront his own unresolved pain as they challenge the understanding of existence. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to say that this is my favorite of all the Star Trek pilots that were made, of all the series. Just a fantastically well put together pilot that set the stage for everything to come afterwards.
I will have to agree with that statement, Wayne, to be honest with you. First off, how they started this at Wolf 359 was just mind-blowing. And to see a different angle of that fight, just something you didn't see coming. I remember when I first saw that on TV, I was like, holy crap, we're going back to that? And that one shot of when the shuttle takes off with Sisko and them on it before the ship blows up, that was just a cool shot. It really was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, first of all, great overview and description, Wayne. Thank you. And I'll definitely I'll throw a third hat in the ring and agree. There is such rich development and such fertile ground to cover established in this from the jump. Like, we see the Battle of Wolf 359 echoed throughout other series. It comes up often, and it deserves to, because it was such a big, impactful moment. So seeing that from other perspectives is a stroke of genius. But to see that from the family perspective is even more heartbreaking. Knowing that Sisko has to leave his wife, knowing that she's gone, but he needs to be there for his son, and leaving. And that kind of resentment so fresh on the minds of people who watch The Next Generation. And having it be something where it's not like, we're not pals. There's camaraderie, to be sure. There's mutual respect and whatnot. We've got Chief O'Brien that joins us on the crew, so there's kind of some continuity there. But there's no real love between Commander Sisko and Captain Picard, which sets this up as a very interesting thing. Because at that moment with Next Generation, it's like, how could you be any better than Picard as a character? And this knocks him down a little bit.
I said this episode was nominated for 4 Emmy Awards too. What a way to start! What a way to start a series. I mean, okay.
Yep. Yeah. And it won one too. It won the best theme for Dennis McCarthy. Yeah.
It's just a really cool theme.
I just wanted to state that it's Patrick Stewart's appearance in this episode was, I mean, it's not only fantastic, he's always fantastic and everything was, but it was necessary. You know, I remember way back when this show was first announced, you know, we were all excited but a little skeptical because it just didn't sound like the Star Trek that we knew. It didn't, you know, the whole thing about not being on a spaceship and stuff. We weren't sure about it. And having him step in, him specifically being on the episode, especially as much as he is in it, I mean, he's a rather important character in this episode that was brilliant and was really needed to alleviate a lot of the fears that we had back then.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It also does a great job of just kind of setting you up with the station. You know, if you think about stories coming from problems to solve, it sets it up as the entire place being a problem to solve. There's holes in things. There are things that have been stolen. It's been ransacked. Nothing works right. So you know that this series, at least in early days, is going to be about, you know, struggles with that kind of adoptive home that they have of this station.
Yep. I think I know this is spoiler free, but my favorite scene obviously is when O'Brien's saying goodbye to the Enterprise, and Picard comes in, you know, and you thought, you know, basically thought you were going to get away from me without saying goodbye, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I loved that scene between the two of them. I thought that was really cool.
Although it's interesting watching it after Lower Decks and all these other things. I
Yes.
found myself wondering, what shift are they on? Because nobody is on that bridge.
Yeah.
It's like a ghost town. But Picard's in his ready room, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, they were docked at the station, so a lot of people, I guess, they really didn't need anyone. Although I would think
Yeah,
there would at
that's
least be one person sent there in case something happened, an attack or whatever. They are on the edge of Federation space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not to get on a tangent here, because I know we've got 9 more episodes to talk about, and our listeners are like, well, what's the next one? What do you guys think about the reason why the creators put this on Bajor was because of Ensign Rowe? And because Ensign Rowe was going to be Kira. But Michelle Forbes decided she did not want to sign on to a 6-year contract at the time, so she backed out of it, and that's how we got the character of Kira. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a smart decision because you don't have to invest in Rose's character from Next Generation, and you get more than one perspective from Bajorans. You get someone who is from the Bajoran military, who used to be part of kind of, rebel forces, for lack of a better term. So I think it was a good idea to broaden things out, and I'm glad that we have Nana Visitor as Kira Nerys.
Well, I'm sure Jeff's happy because he's not an Ensign Rowe fan. Wayne, what do you think?
That's true.
No, I actually agree. They really desired to bring a character over from the Next Generation, and if they had brought Michelle Forbes over, we wouldn't have got Colmini, we wouldn't have got O'Brien. And I think of the two characters, I think it was better to have O'Brien and explore him than Rowe, because Rowe had pretty much done the majority of exploration that we also already could do with that character.
Yeah.
You would have just continued on now, by adding a new character and giving her, a different background and different stories and stuff. It was much more beneficial to the whole series.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I believe they even said that they felt O'Brien's character was being wasted on as just the transporter room, because his character was so good, and Cole Meany is a really good actor. That's why they decided to bring him over to Deep Space Nine, so they could explore his character in more depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true.
Get a 3-for-1, but definitely a 2-for-1 in terms of the I guess I don't want to say the adult actors because that sounds like a different genre, but we get O'Brien and we get Keiko, and I think their relationship is also very interesting because so much of this is family, whether it's a found family kind of dynamic of the friends and the colleagues, or it's Jake and his father. Relationships here, so it was a great choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's move on to the second episode. Scott?
Our second episode is Captive Pursuit. It's written by Jill Sherman Donner and directed by Corey Allen. The first Gamma Quadrant resident to come through the wormhole is a mystery who calls himself Tosk. His nervous disposition draws suspicion throughout the station except for Chief O'Brien, who has the official duty of making first contact through engineering repairs. As Tosk and O'Brien become friends, another ship emerges from the wormhole in pursuit of Tosk the Hunted. Now the station is caught in a dilemma: save Tosk from the hunt or honor their culture and the Prime Directive.
There's so many episodes I love, but this is the one that really stands out to me just because of the character of Tosk, and the relationship with O'Brien here. And I know I can't say some of the ending stuff because what happens, but the way this ends is very touching. And I love it so much. And I believe Cole Meany says this is his favorite episode from season 1, which makes sense because he's in it a lot, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, it's such a cool episode. It really is.
Yeah, I'm glad we agreed on this one because Michael Westmore in the makeup department won an Emmy for this episode, deservedly so, which when you talk about awards, you're pretty early days and you're racking up a lot of them. But his character design was amazing. I think it's made even more so by the performance of Scott McDonald as Tosk. I think his expressions through the makeup are very telegraphic of what he's going through and the struggles. It made me think of the Predator franchise from kind of another perspective here. I also noticed that when we meet the hunter, played by Garrett Graham, who was technician Nestler in 1986's Chopping Mall.
No, that's right.
So we got some callbacks there.
That's right, good one.
Yeah, he also played another Q on Voyager too. Don't forget that. He came back later.
Yeah. No, but I think it's great performances in this one.
So, what I love, I'm going to go back to Quark because I love his being offended being called a barkeeper or a barkeep. How offended he was by that.
Yep.
But I got a question for you guys. So Odo's just hanging out on the wall as a picture? Just hanging out, you know?
He just does that every once in a while.
Yeah, I get the impression he does that a lot. Yeah, he just turns into something, hangs around and listens. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Odo.
Yeah, no, privacy rules, right?
Right. Pretty voyeuristic there, Odo. What are you into, buddy?
Yeah.
But no, very good episode. It was.
Yeah, this was one of my top choices too for the first season. I remember the anticipation for this episode was huge because, we all wanted to see what was on the other side of the wormhole, and this is our first opportunity to see anybody from it. And I just remember loving this episode when it first aired.
Well, we'll move on to episode 3 called Dax, written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, directed by David Carson. A group of aliens under the leader of Ilan Tandro from Clastron 4 follow and take Dax hostage despite an attempt by Bashir to save her. Commander Sisko manages to stop them, but only to find out that Tandro has a warrant for Dax, whose former self is accused of treason and murdering Tandro's father, who was a famous general from 30 years ago. Sisko works furiously to try and figure out how to save her, but does she want to be saved? You know, this is another one. Star Trek does so many good episodes when it comes to courtroom drama, do they not?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
they do.
Sure.
And this is another one of those episodes. It's not the whole episode is courtroom drama, but there's a little bit in there. You know, it's not a true courtroom, as it's stated several times, but it still felt like it. And it's done so well when they present, should she be responsible for, the other being that's in her, even though she's a different person? That was, quite the conundrum that we were in right there, and it brought up a lot of questions for them.
Yeah, I mean that's the question: is she a different person?
Yeah,
I mean the Trill are supposed to be, the Trill's a symbiont, so it's a merged mind. So if anything, she's half. So that was the question. It was a great question to bring up this early in the series,
and one that doesn't necessarily get answered. Without spoiling it, there's exploration of this topic. But I'd say it's something that kind of leads to debate, right? So is if a Trill commits a crime that essentially condemns all the past lives as well, because if they sentence a Trill to death, all that experience is lost.
Yep.
But by the same token, does that mean if a crime is committed, that Trill should spend life in prison, knowing that life would mean continuing to be passed from host to host? So you're condemning future hosts.
Yeah.
To serve that out. And how long does that last? I think it was a brilliant courtroom episode, very interesting, very thought-provoking, a lot of great performances, specifically by Terry Farrell, Lieutenant Jadzia Dax. Aside from the fact that I still have a crush on Terry Farrell, and she's absolutely gorgeous.
She is good.
But her performance here, like she essentially feels like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this franchise, at least in the beginning, because she brings all that kind of wisdom and that wry wit and things like that. But her choice in this one to have that almost like a steady stare that she kind of locks into, almost like she doesn't want to make eye contact, she doesn't want to look at anybody, brings out both the weight and the burden that Curzon still feels, the conflict that Jadzia feels, and trying to process this as they're going through a trial that might condemn them to death. It was a fascinating episode, and I think it's just great performances all around, and a very interesting look into not only Trill culture, but to get a look at what we're going to see from Dax in future episodes.
Yep.
And it's the first time that our Klingon coffees mentioned Rakajino, and plus I want to point out something for all our new viewers to look for. Somewhere in this episode, one of the prop masters included the fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Look for it.
Yep, I was about ready to say that. Thanks for stealing my thunder.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So the other thing that I found very humorous about this episode I want to point out is Anne Haney, who plays Renora. I always remember her from the episode of Golden Girls, where she played Bonnie in the episode called Operation. Funny enough, Robert Picardo was also in that episode as the doctor.
Interesting.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
To me, she'll always be the job placement person in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
Do you consider yourself funny? I used to.
Yeah, I know. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's move on to number 4. Scott?
At number 4, we have The Nagus, written and directed by David Livingston. At the top of Ferengi society sits the Grand Nagus, the most feared, respected, and ruthless leader in the quadrant. He visits Quark's bar to assess all the opportunities for profits on the other side of the wormhole. However, his advanced age takes a toll, and he decides to pass his scepter of leadership to Quark. It's a position that any Ferengi would covet, but it's also one that threatens his life. Will Quark live long enough to profit from his latest ascension? Let's talk about it.
Wallace Shawn as Zek. I love Wallace Shawn.
I do
I
too.
can't wait to hear Jeff's reaction to Grand Nagus Zek. Yeah.
Yes. I cannot wait. I want to point out for listeners who've not seen Deep Space Nine, please keep an eye out for Morn. Because he is in 93 episodes of this?
Yep.
Does
Yeah.
that sound right?
Yeah.
So he's probably on there, but probably the background person who's in it the most. Obviously, besides the main characters and stuff like that. But keep an eye on him because he pops up a lot in the background.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wallace Shawn, going back to his performances, is Zek, horribly obnoxious. Like when you talk about like Ferengi getting on your nerves, this goes to the apex. But he's captivating to watch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to kind of like turn the volume way down when he's talking, but it's so interesting. The level of makeup that they caked on him, hats off to him for just that, if nothing else.
Right.
But it's a great look into Ferengi culture, and just keep an open mind and give them a chance because it's definitely worth it.
Because remember, Vulcan stole his homework because they don't have ethics.
Right? Well,
I love that line.
I'm glad you brought up that point because this is a very important episode for the development of Nog and Rom's character, but most specifically Nog.
Yes.
What he goes through, the friendship he develops with Jake, and his struggles with, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to expand. I'm going to human school.
Yep.
But none of my family wants me to be there. It's a great moment, and a great moment between Jake and his father.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is going to take back what I mentioned earlier, that chemistry between father and son here. It is perfectly on screen here throughout this episode. And when Cisco goes to find out what's going on, and I'm not going to give it away because I don't want to, spoiler free here, that was, very heartwarming. It was. I felt it. I felt it when Cisco felt it. I really did. It was awesome.
Yeah, this episode is one of the most important episodes of the first season, really. This is where all development from the Ferengi came from this episode. This is the first episode to mention the rules of acquisition, which kind of become very important in their society. I love this episode. It's also, again, one of my favorites because of two big things. Wallace Shawn, which, everybody loves him. He's great.
Yep.
And I have to point out, this has an absolutely incredibly fun musical score by John Debney. One of the few episodes that he scored. It's incredible.
I do want to point out another Quark scene. His laugh, his hysterical laugh when Rom wants to take over his bar.
Yep.
Oh, I swear, poor Rom, poor Rom.
Yep.
Boy, that was fantastic. Good job. All right, let's move on to episode 5. Wayne?
And that will be Vortex, written by Sam Rolfe and directed by Winrich Colby. A wanted criminal named Corden arrives on Deep Space Nine after killing an alien twin during a botched robbery. Odo, suspicious of Corden's evasive behavior, learns that he may hold knowledge of other changelings like himself. Corden convinces Odo to escort him through the Gamma Quadrant, claiming he can lead him to a colony where shapeshifters live, but he may have other personal ulterior motives in mind. Now, this is a good and very important episode for Odo this early in the season. We're starting to learn a little bit more about this mysterious character that even he doesn't know where he's from or who he is. This plays a very, very important role later on in the series, but this is the beginnings of it. It's a great episode. It's written by a very unusual writer, Sam Rolfe. He one of his few times touching a Star Trek. He's the guy that created the TV series back in the '60s called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Great series, one of my favorite '60s series. But good episode. It's a really good Odo episode, which is why I wanted this episode to be featured in this top 10.
I want to point out that Grodin is Cliff DeYoung.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, I was in Andersonville with Mr. DeYoung. I remember being on set with him.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Did he show you a necklace?
No, he did not.
No.
Sadly,
Oh.
sadly, that changed shape or anything. No, sadly, he didn't. Odo's line: "I'm a security chief, not a combat pilot." We know where that was going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Obviously, in honor of McCoy, of his "I'm a doctor, not a whatever." I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And
I think
this episode is important for one other thing too. This is the first time anyone actually goes and steps foot into the Gamma Quadrant.
Oh yeah.
after all these episodes, what are we, halfway through the season, and finally we've made it to the Gamma Quadrant.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's interesting when you think of like the characters. If you're a fan of Next Generation, I would say if you were a fan of Data's storyline,
Mm-hmm.
that Odo's storyline definitely bears watching.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some shared DNA there, not literally, but in terms of the story, he's found and doesn't seem to remember where he comes from, doesn't know a lot about his origins, feels alone in the universe, and has to kind of uncover a little bit about that, and also kind of define who he'll be. Obviously, he's a more emotionally driven character than Data, which is a godsend. But it's interesting to see how his character changes a little bit when he has the prospect of learning about others.
Mm-hmm.
By the same token, it's interesting how much that doesn't really change all that much. I think it's a great use of the necklace as that kind of trinket to kind of hint at where he may have come from and where he might find some clues. I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask this crew, specifically Wayne, do we ever see that necklace again?
No, we don't. It's one of those hanging plot lines that they never brought up, and I think it's a lot to do with later on. A couple of seasons from now, they kind of changed course on the way the Odo's origins were. I won't bring anything out yet or reveal anything, but I don't think that was exactly planned when they first created this series. So that was forgotten on the sidelines.
I do think there's a way they could coexist that we can talk about later.
When we get to that point, yeah.
Yeah. But I guess without spoiling anything, I think it'd be like a question that is coming back in my mind is what if Odo had tried to link with it? Could that possibly have been like it's not just a changeling necklace, but it could hold certain information if it's specifically meant to be interacted with by a changeling, not just somebody that can kind of hold it, watch it change shape, and go back again, but something more than that. I don't know. It might be interesting to know if that ever got explored.
We'll never know. Not now, anyway.
Right.
All right, so we are going to take another break, listeners. When we come back, we will continue. Welcome back, listeners, to Phaser Set to Stun. We are continuing our discussion of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Starter Trek. We will start with 6th episode, which is Battle Lines, written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, directed by Paul Lynch. Kai Opaka arrives on the station and shows some great interest in the wormhole, so Sisko, Bashir, and Kira take her on a runabout and go into the wormhole. Just on the other side in the Gamma Quadrant, they get a signal which Kai Opaka insists for them to go look into. As they investigate, a satellite disables the shuttle and causes them to crash down onto the surface of a moon. It isn't long until the survivors are discovered by a group of the Innis on the moon. They find out that the Innis are prisoners of a long war with a Null Innis that has continued onto the moon itself, one that is never ending. But Sisko, Bashir, and Kira discover there is clearly a lot more to this than they realize. Talk about confusion of Innis, non-Innis, or no Innis, I should say. My understanding is I believe it was supposed to be Cardassians, was it not? But they changed it because they didn't want it to look like we were siding with the Cardassians. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Which
That
makes
sounds
perfect
right.
sense because you don't want to get into that mess.
No,
No,
not this early.
no.
No. I
um,
just
Go ahead.
I just remember being so confused with this episode when it first
Yeah.
aired. The character of Kaiopaka, she seemed like such an important character if to the series in Emissary, and then this happens, and I was so baffled with it. I understand now, with looking at the entire series as a whole, but new viewers just accept it for what it is and hang on.
Yep.
It is confusing. You wonder why they did this to her, but there is a good reason for it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very strong character. I think Kaiopaka is a great character, a great performance by Camille Saviola in that role. I recognize her from several different things, but I think she has a great performance here. I think it's a great setup. It almost had kind of Doctor Who vibes for me in terms of the relationship between the Ennis and the Noel Ennis. Fans of Breaking Bad will enjoy this with Jonathan Banks in the role of Shelah. He's obviously a bit different. He's a little bit more, the heavy metal hair kind of days, but just a lot of great performances that kind of make you pause and think, and it kind of shows you a little bit more about the beliefs of Kaiopaka and how far she's willing to go to hold on to those beliefs.
I want to point out Jonathan Banks was in Sequest. Sequest doesn't get a lot of love, and I know Wayne loves that show.
No,
There
I
you
love
go.
that show. Yes, he was. He was a great character in that. There's another good character too. One of my favorite stuntmen has a lot to do in this. Tom Morga, and he also designed the weapons for this episode too. Basically, he just took like a cardboard blade and a ball and old tool handle and taped them all together. But I can't help. I mean, he's been in hundreds and hundreds of episodes, but this one you can point him out right away.
Just don't go to
So it's
conventions
kid,
waiting
kid
on
bashing and stunt work.
I'm pretty sure I saw some behind the scenes photos in his album when he was showing them.
Probably. So don't go to conventions with Wayne if Tom Morgan's there, because you're going to be in a photo shoot. You're going to be waiting on Tom forever and ever.
Oh,
and ever.
yeah.
So
better believe it. He has got incredible stories.
I'm sure he does. With his IMDb list, I can see why. He's got tons of stories. All right, let's move on to number 7, Wayne.
And that is Progress, written by Peter Allen Fields and directed by Les Landau. Bajoran authorities order the evacuation of a moon slated to be used for a vital energy project. Kira Nerys is sent to oversee the removal of the last holdouts, but she encounters an elderly farmer named Molabok who refuses to abandon his home. Despite her sympathy for his attachment to the land he built, Kira attempts to reason with him but fails, and she grows torn between duty and compassion. Molabok will not leave, and Kira may be forced to take more dramatic measures to convince him.
Let me point out. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me just point out that this was an amazing performance by Nana Visitor.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
This is her episode.
Yep.
Definitely her episode. And it's got probably one of the most high-profile guest stars of the first season. I do remember them really playing that up, and that's Brian Keith playing Molabok. He was in a lot of films, Parent Trap, Rare Breed, Johnny Shiloh, Winnie the Lion. But he also was at the time, this was just, early 90s. So he was still in everybody's mind because he was the star of a TV series called Hardcastle and McCormick, which was a really very successful series. But him and Nana Visitor do a phenomenal job together in this. It's absolutely an incredible and a very important episode for her story. And it's also the second episode to be scored by John Debney, which is another incredible score, which is available on CD.
I also want to point out Annie O'Donnell is in this, who played the wife of Brent Spiner in Night Court.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. That's a callback, Dave. Extra points. Yeah, I mean, this episode does a great job of expanding not only Kira Nerys's character. I think it's the first time we hear Nerys. But it expands on how well it works to stay near Bajor and keep exploring that culture and that history and the meaning of what they have gone through and what they're currently going through. to have her in the spotlight was brilliant. Brian Keith does an amazing job in this. I do kind of wonder if the subplot, which I also kind of liked about self-stealing stem bolts, maybe they could have negotiated with the people that are trying to take them off world and say like, but have you seen these stem bolts? And then it suddenly just resolves itself. But,
Dude, they had it going on, did they not?
yeah,
They two kids were doing it.
I mean, they're hustling.
They are hustling big time.
Despite the fact that nobody knows what the hell those things are supposed to do.
Not even O'Brien.
Exactly.
He was like, I don't know what to do. I just saw them on the list. I also want to point out the scene between Cisco and Kira. And I can't say too much about it because it was towards the end of the episode, and I don't want to give any spoilers. But when he gives that speech to her, to really make her come to, was just a great scene between those two characters.
Yeah,
it
for
really
sure.
was.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to episode 8. Scott?
Number 8 is The Forsaken, directed by Les Landau and written by John Trombetta. It's another surprisingly poignant episode featuring Loaxana Troy, where DS9 becomes host to several guests that test the crew's resolve in several ways. A delegation of ambassadors arrives on the station, including Loaxana Troy, at the same time that a mysterious alien probe unleashes an alien program that wreaks havoc within the station's systems. Dr. Bashir struggles to keep all the ambassadors busy and happy, and doesn't do a great job at it, while Odo is involuntarily assigned to Mrs. Troy when she becomes infatuated with him. As tensions build between them, they become stuck together on a malfunctioning turbolift. Odo does his best to manage the situation with diplomacy, but he also begins to lose his physical composure since he's gone so long without regenerating. It's a funny yet poignant episode that's another classic, as most are with Mrs. Troy. It's interesting how my opinion of Mrs. Troy changed.
Yes! I was going to say that.
In these rewatches. Oh my goodness. Like, I used to have this reaction where I was like, all right, I'm going to rewatch these things. It's the Loaxana Troy episode? No thanks.
Yep.
And I'd be inclined to skip it. But my goodness, she is one of those that is definitely worth watching, knowing how important Majel Barrett is to the franchise in general, but this character does an amazing job of using comedy to great effect, but also her ability for drama is mind-blowing.
Yep. I was just the same as you, Scott, when I saw this episode. I'm like, but I remember what a good episode this was with Loaxana Troy. And when I watched it again, I'm like, wow, this was a great episode that I remember with her. But what I find very amusing is the gag again they did. When Picard was coming off the turbo lift and he's trying to look for her and hide, they did the same thing with Odo.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a good episode, considering it's actually one of the season's bottle episodes. It's very obvious it is. They don't really go anywhere, but it's good. And also, sometimes I forget that there were two, both Deep Space Nine and Next Generation were airing at the same time. I always see this as later in the continuity line, but actually takes place before her appearance in what is the episode Dark Page on Next Generation, which is my absolute best favorite of her all of her appearances. But I really have re-evaluated this episode. It's a fantastic episode for Loaxana Troy.
Yep. Yeah. I got to say the scene in Ops when the ambassadors show up and Cisco realizes that they are there and he has his back to them. And he turns on his customer service face and spins around. I felt that deep in me. I did.
Yep.
Because we all have to do that when we have to deal with people. And I'm like, oh, okay, yep. Cisco has to do it too. I get it. But no, this was a really good pick. And listeners out there, if you're rolling your eyes because it's a Loaxana Troy episode, don't. It's a really good one. It is.
Yes, definitely worth watching. Don't skip it.
Yeah, just the scenes between her and Odo on the turbo lift were fantastic. They really were. All right, well, let's move on to episode 9, Duet, written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, directed by James Conway. A Cardassian traveler arrives on the space station and is quickly learned he has the Kalanor disease and needs medical attention. We learned that only people who were sent to the most brutal labor camps by the Cardassians were affected by this disease, causing some concerns and questions by Kira on who he really is and tends to persecute him to the full extent of Bajoran law. Kira fights her internal battles as she struggles to distinguish between vengeance, truth, answers, and her planet's pressure to prosecute him for war crimes. But as she and the crew dig deeper, they discover just who their prisoner really is. Now, I'm going to say this is Kira's best episode in season 1, by far. Her best, Nana Visitor's most incredible performance, especially the scenes in the cell where she is questioning him and trying to figure out who he is he responsible for all that, and just getting to that, the answers. I just thought that was incredible, and I hung on every word in those scenes.
Yeah, this is an episode that I'm glad that I forgot what happens in it. It is so worth the wait, the kind of unraveling of what happens in the episode, and even when you get some kind of resolution, it's still not over yet. I think that the acting between Nana Visitor and Harris Yulin as the main kind of protagonist character are brilliant. I mean, very hard to look away at these two when they're acting together.
Star Trek is so good at making these dramatic episodes, and this is definitely one of their finest. This is a must watch. Frequently this is listed on people's best episode lists, and even as recent as 2017, the BBC's Radio Times listed it as the 5th best episode of Star Trek altogether. So he definitely watch this one. It is phenomenally good, and it's because of the performances.
I think Armin Shimmerman and Nana Visitor count this as among their favorite episodes of the entire series, and I can see
understand why.
Not giving anything away, but I'm telling you, there's a gut punch coming.
To that end, I feel like this is one that's worth watching twice.
Yes.
If you want to follow our list, definitely feel free to do so. See it through to the end. But this is one where you'll have a different perspective on some things when you rewatch it, and I think it's worth taking a look.
All right, let's move on to our final episode of season 1, number 10, Wayne.
And that is the season finale, In the Hands of the Prophets, written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe and directed by David Livingston. Vedic Wynn arrives on Deep Space Nine and objects to Keiko O'Brien's teaching of Bajoran children, claiming the Federation school dismisses Bajoran religious beliefs. Her challenge sparks tension between secular Federation ideals and Bajoran spiritual traditions, creating a rift among the station's Bajoran population. As Sisko works to ease the conflict, a series of violent incidents, including the bombing of the school, reveals Wynn's willingness to incite unrest to advance her political ambitions. Sisko begins to recognize the growing influence of Bajoran religion in station politics and Wynn's dangerous potential as an adversary. First of all, this wasn't how the season was supposed to end.
Nope.
They were originally going to do this as a large crossover between Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation. They were going to have them fighting against a Bajoran attack. But that was just way too much cost. By the end of the season, they're kind of counting their pennies. But this was a real, even though this wasn't actually a very expensive episode because of huge crowd numbers. It's wonderfully done. I keep saying this is definitely a top 10 episode. It's definitely an incredibly important episode to watch. A lot of introductions here, lots of introductions to storylines that are going to continue all the way to the finale of the entire series. So you can't miss this one. You have to watch it.
I liked the debate that was going on, obviously, in our country between evolution and creationism, and how that pops up in Star Trek. Because Star Trek does that so well. They'll see what politics are going on in the world or in the country, and they'll pull that into an episode. And that's clearly what they did here. And it makes sense. I mean, it works well because you're over a planet, Bajor, and you got to deal with their politics because, really, isn't this their space station? The Cardassians had it. Now it's over Bajor. There's a lot going on there. And this is where the whole series is going to take place. They should dive into something like this. So it's interesting they chose it for the finale, but it makes sense. It really does.
Yeah, and the themes are actually even more relevant today than they were back then. I mean, we're still debating all this stuff today here in the real world.
It was nice seeing Keiko again, by the way.
Yes, it was.
Yes, got to give props to Rosalind Chow in Keiko O'Brien's role. Does a phenomenal job, and as a teacher at the cusp of the unknown, right? Trying to find a way to help kids apply scientific reasoning to help understand things that are happening, and she's still saying that there's a place for the religious belief angle, but that's not necessarily her responsibility. The fact that when we talk about modern relevance and things like that, especially with Vedic Wynn, who is one of my least favorite characters, Louise Fletcher does a great job of creating that character. But when you have someone that uses that debate as a way to grab onto power and use it to her own designs, definitely relevant today, but a theme that we've heard throughout history, and definitely one worth watching here. It does a great job of setting up that dynamic at this point, not necessarily between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, but the Bajorans within themselves. There's differing beliefs, there's differing factions. It's a theme that definitely comes back around, and we show that as much as the station is kind of coming together and finding opportunities for unity, there's also opportunities for division, and something they definitely need to continue to working on throughout the series. One of the reasons that this series is worth watching, frankly.
And Louise Fletcher, she is such an incredible actress. I mean, we all know her from her other films. She's an Academy Award winner, but the fact that we hate Vedic Wynn so much really shows just how incredible an actress she is, because you really do hate that character.
And as we did with Star Trek Next Generation as well, there's obviously an episode of the season that we probably didn't like as much, and is a dishonorable mention, I guess. So, Wayne, what do you got for us?
Oh, without question, it's Move Along Home.
Halibarain.
Let me give you a quick synopsis of this. The Wadi, which is a gamma quadrant species, visits Deep Space Nine. They introduce a game named Chula, and Cisco and Kieran, Dax, and Bashir become game pieces inside this environment where their lives appear to depend on the outcome, and Quark is playing the game on the outside. When Deep Space Nine first premiered, it was marketed as a darker, more grounded version of Star Trek, we got in the Next Generation. But this episode's just too campy, too comic for what we were all expecting. And it might have worked as maybe an original series episode, but not with the rest of the episodes of Deep Space Nine. It just doesn't work. Not this early in the show. The Wadi come across mostly as just goofy, and considering they're the first species that are encountered from the Gamma Quadrant after the wormhole's discovery, it's a huge disappointment. And don't get me started on that whole Alamarine and hopscotch scene. That was just embarrassing. Plus, it was because of this episode that we didn't get Terry Farrell on the Next Generation, that episode Birthright. She had to film this horrible thing. Even Avery Brooks once said at one of his appearances at Dragon Con that this is his least favorite episode.
Clearly we can see why.
I've seen this voted several times as the worst episode of the franchise, and I think I've seen it was voted eighth worst episode of the whole Star Trek franchise, not just the series.
Let's just say I don't like this even more than Spock's brain.
Yeah. Well, and it's you mentioned that hopscotch scene, the performance of I can't even say that it's because of the actor that plays Julian Bashir. There's a situation there in that hopscotch scene where he just acts so out of character. So it feels like if you can make it past hopscotch, you have my respect. And my condolences at the same time. So.
Definitely.
Just avoid the episode altogether, unless
like
you guys spare time after you've seen the 10 episodes we've talked about, and then go back and watch it just for giggles. There you go.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you want to giggle during it. I didn't. I just held my head and turned away.
Fair enough. Oh, just like we did for Star Trek The Next Generation, we're going to choose one character from the season and pick what we think is their best scene moment for the season. This one we are choosing Commander Benjamin Sisko. Scott, what is your best moment for him?
I would say the one that I found most fascinating, and there's a ton in here, and there's tons more to come, listeners, so don't think that this is like the apex of Sisko.
No.
When he is trying to build the defense for Dax in the Dax episode.
Ooh, good one.
And there's a moment when it feels like he's talking to both Jadzia and Curzon alternately in the same conversation, while at the same time trying to find understanding in the middle. He loses his temper at one point, and you see the dynamic between the two of them grow, and it's so much of a definition for Jadzia's character, for Dax's character specifically, because it's kind of like, I'm that person you knew, but I'm somebody completely different. And trying to figure out how that works. Their dynamic is beautiful here, and I think he did a great job there.
Well, he had a lot of great moments this first season, but I think his finest moment really happened in the season finale, In the Hands of the Prophets, where Sisko refuses to allow the Bajoran religious dogma to dictate the Federation school policy, and when Vedic Wind pressures Keiko to include those teachings, everything that has happened, every bit of character growth during the last 20 episodes kind of have been leading to this. It's just, Sisko shows himself as a thoughtful but a very firm leader. He respects Bajoran faith, but draws the line against allowing it to really compromise his own principles and Federations. It just shows his willingness to stand the ground against this powerful religious leader, and her manipulation, which is really what she's doing, kind of definitely sets him apart from Picard. It shows that he's not going to be bullied by anybody. And I just think both his and everyone's performances this season, are just incredible, and really everything, the way we go right now from Sisko, he just gets better and better as we go to the end of the season, or series, to the end of the series.
I love the fact that all three of us have different ones, and they're like spread out for the whole season. Wayne, you picked the finale. I'm picking Emissary. It's Sisko's moment is when he's with his son, and he's showing his vulnerability to his son, to Jake, showing his grief and admitting he can't move on from his wife's death. The chemistry, and I've mentioned it several times already in this episode, the chemistry between these two actors is phenomenal. Like, the casting was dead on for a father and son relationship to show on screen, and how good it is. And this scene between the two of them is just absolutely beautiful, showing their relationship of how much Sisko really cares for his son and how much his son respects his dad. And to show, because a lot of fathers would hide that from their son, right? That, they can't move on from the death of their wife. But he knows that that's not fair to Jake. So he allows that to happen because that's just going to make their relationship even stronger. And to me, that proved to me just what an amazing person Sisko is and what a great leader he's going to be, because he has that vulnerability. He has that honesty with everybody he works with and works under him. And you're right. This is just the tip of the iceberg for Sisko. His character gets bigger and better as we go along to this season. Series. Yeah. We talked about this briefly in a chat. We were talking about how we felt like Sisko wasn't at his best in season 1. He still is really good in this season. Do not get me wrong. And we've pointed out 3 amazing scenes here that he was really good in. And when we started talking about it and realizing, holy crap, there are some great episodes coming up for Sisko that we just cannot wait to dive into.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. And as a dad, you've got to, you can't help but empathize for the situation that he is in. The difficulty, just the nature of where he is, asking his son, his family to come along with him, but knowing that when Jake lost his mom, he was only 10 years old.
Yep.
And now he's a teenager, and Sisko is trying to raise a teenager, which is always fraught with
Go ahead,
learning
Scott.
opportunities, right? It's not always easy for either one, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
his demeanor, it's interesting how much kind of, power and respect Benjamin Sisko has, or how much he kind of, draws from other people.
Mm-hmm.
But he keeps all that under this kind of calm, even-keeled demeanor. It's got like a Lion King, like a Mufasa
It does.
kind of quality to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's Avery Brooks, amazing actor, and he's just getting started here.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. All right, listeners, so what do you think? Did we get it correct? Did your episodes make the cut? If you're new to Star Trek, are you looking forward to diving into these 10 episodes? Let us know and why. We would love to hear your comments. You can check us out at www.afilmbypodcast.com for film and TV articles and our entire library streaming free. You can write to us at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com with your questions, comments, and concerns. We may just read your response on the show and send you some A Film By swag. Scott, Wayne, thank you for joining me. I can't say on the bridge this time, and on the Ops Center, I guess.
Yeah.
On the promenade.
On the promenade.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Because I cannot wait to go through the rest of the series with you guys, because I know there's some major stuff coming that it's going to be really heavy for us to talk about. And I can't wait for anyone who's new to the show to get into those seasons, because there's some stuff coming that's going to get crazy. And to all you listening to the show, following us on social media, and subscribing to our Patreon, we thank you. See you next time for another episode of Phasers Set to Stun.